I was talking with Kansas City.
Kind of soon.
The first time I saw Sullivan's Travels, I was a junior, I think, at Vassar College, and we had a discussion afterward, and the teacher was getting very frustrated because all the students kept remarking on how fake certain parts of the movie seemed to them. They thought that the scenes with all the tramps and underprivileged people seemed like too movie-like, and he seemed to be getting quite flummoxed, the teacher did. And so being the sort of precocious kid who had movie critics as parents, I sort of threw my hand up and said, well, I think that it's intentionally like a movie because Sturges is commenting on filmmaking, so the scene should feel like a fake movie scene. And the teacher was very glad that I threw this in. I had no idea if what I was saying was actually true. And I think sort of what's actually makes this movie so interesting and something that you can watch over and over is that Sturges never really does acknowledge, how much is what's a comment and what isn't. I mean, some stuff is clear, but I to this day don't know if what I said is true at all, but it got me an A, and I put a lot of those other kids to shame. From that point on, I would just sort of make stuff up that sounded good in class.
In all of Preston Sturges' films, every inch of the way is populated by kind of real people. They're types and they're broad, but each one of them has something going on. It's not, they don't just pass through to say, to throw one line their way. Even the two guys that they meet early on when they jump into the boxcar the first time, they tell a little story with very few lines, but it's really clear kind of who they represent. As we get deeper into the world that they run into, we see that there's all kinds. We see that there's the railroad bull and the straw boss on the in the prison. They are kind of stepping on those lower than they are. We're seeing the hierarchy. We're seeing this kind of cross section of the society, and it's almost a great trick on Sullivan when the guy beats him up and steals the money. It's almost a great trick on him, but it turns really bitter. And it becomes what he's been looking for. It's just that he can't remember that that's what he was looking for. But all along the way, he meets these really decent people and these really awful people. And the awful people all seem to have one thing in common, is that they are looking at something that they perceive as below them. And they are taking advantage of that to make themselves feel big or to feel powerful. So while we, really recoil at the violence when he starts hitting the railroad bull with the rock, we're also completely on his side. It's an interesting thing. So he gets in touch with the brutality that most people have to deal with on a daily basis. I mean, if not the actual practice of it, at least the temptation to try and, push their way through something they can't work their way through.
Prisoner at the bar? Prisoner at the bar. Answer when you're spoken to. Huh?
This is a man who has no gravity anymore.
Guilty or not guilty to trespass and atrocious assault?
I remember hearing this discussed, this idea of when you're showing a man who is hazy or who's in a dream or whatever, can you show the man himself and surround it physically with distortion like this? Or is it a cheat? Should you only see what he sees in that? It's one of the many questions that nobody asked before 1978, so I'm going to drop it right now.
We plead guilty, Your Honor, with extenuating circumstances due to temporary insanity and throw ourselves on the mercy of the court.
This is Sturges having his cake and eating it too. This scene and what precedes it are as dark and message-driven as any liberal director in Hollywood could make them. It perfectly conveys the sense of confusion, frustration, disorientation that Depression audiences had gone through. It was both feeding off earlier classic American films, like I Was a Fugitive from a Chain Gang and William Wellman's Wild Boys of the Road, It's as if Sturges is in collusion with his audience to get one over on the studio types, to pretend to give them a comedy while really nudging the audience with a wink. I, Preston Sturges, understand you have real problems, even if Hollywood doesn't. In short, I'm really one of you, not one of them. Jimmy Conlon was a favorite of Sturges. He used him in a number of films, but he used all of these character actors quite a bit. But what's different, perhaps, about Sturges than other directors is they'd always been used in a particular way. And what Sturges would do is kind of flip that on its ear, if you will, and use them very differently than you'd seen them before. And also to a kind of exaggerated extent, even though they were playing a character that they might not have normally played. The kind of craziest, stupidest characters come up with the most brilliant lines and do something very surprising all the time. That was part of his gift.
I'll do that little thing.
I gotta get out of here.
This guy's an angel.
Listen, I'm John L. Sullivan, a Hollywood director. Somebody slugged me. I gotta get out of here.
Hollywood what?
I like that. They know the word Hollywood. They don't know what a Hollywood director is. I got to say that the extras that they dressed in are great. In this entire film, there's nobody who looks like a made-up tramp. I mean, it really looks like there looks like some damage there.
You hear that? He demands a lawyer.
You starting in again?
It's a really interesting pair, the little trustee and the straw boss here, or whatever you want to call him. Because there's this kind of simpleton who does the grunt work and does the sweeping and everything, but he's a good soul. Mainly because he's a prisoner. He's probably a lifer.
No privilege. Fresh guy.
And he spits on the floor. Now that's a bad character. But you know what? At the end, we watch him laughing too, at the movie. There's a couple of cuts of this guy who's just the biggest jerk in the universe, and it's not a redemption. It's something that puts him in with the world. I mean, it's just part of the mix.